The introduction to KHWÄJAH MUGHAMMAD BANGASH. The materials for a notice of this poet are extremely meager. Little is known about him, except that he lived in the reign of the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb and belonged to the BANGASH or BANGASH tribe of Afghans, who hold the valley of that name, and of which the Kohat is the chief town. The BANGASH tribe, in bygone days made a great figure in India, and from a pleasant of it, the Nawabs of Firukabad in that country traced their descent. KHWÄJAH Muhammad lived in the life of a darwish in poverty and religious abstraction, and followed the tenets of the Chasti sect. He was a disciple of Abdur Rahman, who was a disciple of Mi'an Panju, a celebrated Sufi teacher who came originally from Hindustan and dwelt for many years in Afghanistan. He is said to have traced his descent from the Arab devotee Mu'in Uddin, the founder of the Chasti sect, which caught on in areas where Buddhism was particularly common. Some particular type of Buddhism too, but our types also caught on in the areas where there used to be a lot of Jews compared to the rest of the world. But KHWÄJAH Muhammad appears to have been a man of some learning and passed most of his time with his teacher or spiritual guide, already mentioned. It is not known whether he left any descendants, for although I dispatched a person especially into the Bangash country to make inquiry, I cannot now discover with any certainty either his place of birth, residence, or the branch of the tribe into which he belonged. He is known, however, to have performed the pilgrimage to Mecca and Medina, and that after his return thence, he gave up writing poetry. His Diwan, or collection of odes, from which the following poems have been selected, is a very rare book, in fact, scarcely procurable, for as far as I can discover, the copy to which I had access is the only one known. His writings are deeply tinged with the mysticism of the Sufis, but occasionally he devotes a poem to the remembrance of lost friends and laments his bereavement from them. And if we had a wide variety and that sort of thing with anybody, you kind of had that. The place and time of his decease are uncertain, and the whereabouts of the grave in which he was buried is not now known. And as a rule, that generally happens. And little did the author imagine, while stationed in the Punjab a few years since, he was penning the notes for this short notice of a poet of the tribe, that I should behold the last of the Nawabs, escorted by a party of my own regiment, conducted on foot with fetters on his legs, through the streets of Nasik in western India, where I was then stationed in command of a detachment, on his way to undergo perpetual banishment at Mecca, for the share he took in the massacre at Farrukhabad during the late rebellion in India. He had been sentenced to death, but his punishment was committed to perpetual exile, and any place he might select. He chose Mecca in Arabia, where I have since heard he subsists on alms. Now that's a place to be exiled to, but try not to ask anything of anybody or have anybody ask anything of you. There's a special station for that, but that's for elsewhere. I spoke a few words to the wretched man at Nasik. At first, he had heard in kindness, he said. For many long days, he appeared to be anything but what one might expect. From all that had proved against him, he was rather fair, slightly made, and about 30 years of age. To me, he appeared very wretched and heartbroken. He was only an Afghan in name. The centuries of admixture of Indian blood by intermarriage with the people of that country had left little of the Afghan blood remaining. And there's something to be said for certain ethnic or tribal identities outside of the ancestry. Perhaps that's the best way to look at that sort of thing.